A and S. I imagine Joanna Lambert listening to a symphony of wolf cries, coyotes, and the creak of trees, breathing in the bioacoustics of Yellowstone wilderness. Then, I hear the yapping of her Pomeranian Dandelion just along for the ride at today's interview. Jo reminds us that humans' best friend is just a few evolutionary steps away from the apex predators we've been taught to fear. Joanna is a renowned wildlife conservationist whose work in the field infiltrates the classrooms and our communities. I can't imagine Joanna Lambert zipped into a tent in Uganda armed with nothing but a Bic lighter and Swiss Army knife while 6 teenage lions circle outside. Actually, I can imagine it, but what surprises me is that she's not afraid, or that she is afraid and she doesn't let her fear take her out of the wild. On today's episode, you'll hear about these lions, wolves, and bears, and oh my, Jo Lambert is an inspiration. On the ampersand, we call this bringing together of the impossible the alchemy of anding. Together, we'll hear stories of humans who imagine and create by colliding their interests. Rather than thinking of and as a simple conjunction in that conjunction-junction kind of way, we will hear stories of people who see and as a verb, a way to speak the beautiful when you intentionally let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. As St. Mary Oliver asks, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Oh, I love this question. When I'm mothering, creating, and collaborating, it reminds me to replace a singular idea of what I think I should become with a full sensory verb about experiencing. I'm Erica Randall, and this is Jo Lambert on the ampersand.
I am not one of those people that, I'm missing the gene for fear. I am not that person. I'm the person that has dealt with fear in myriad contexts and then just done it anyway. And have learned that in doing that, the rewards can be extraordinary. Also knowing that maybe one day I do it and I may not live, right? I work alone in grizzly country, but I'm willing to accept that risk. And then so what I have thought a lot about and published on and spoke on is like thinking about just the evolutionary significance of fear. We need it. We need to be fearful.
That's
right?
Powerful, yeah.
Like if we didn't have good old-fashioned fight or flight, we would have been extinct a long time ago, right? Mm-hmm. And especially with apex predators, right? That's the deal. And gray wolves are an apex predator.
You have to honor that as part of the whole lineage relationship.
100%.
It's part of the evolution. Wow. Yeah. So, and it's getting in the way.
Yeah. Totally.
You spend a lot of time alone. I want to get back to the question of what we can do as humans who aren't in the field, but I got to ask you about being alone. There's all these TV shows, Naked and Afraid and Alone, and there's but they make kind of normal humans think, I could do that, or I want to do that. What is it really like to be alone in the field and to do it not to win a prize besides saving the planet? So thanks for that. If we can get to that prize, I want it for all of us. But you spend a ton of time alone.
I do. And, I can bring it directly back to the fear thing and knowledge, right? Because what does a kid from Oxford, England and Chicago know about how to stay alive alone in a rainforest in Africa? Zero. Nothing.
Nothing prepared you for that.
Nothing, right? There is only one way to figure that out, and that is to just get out there and do it. And I was afraid. I don't know what to do when a black mamba.
I was going to say, what kits what spider bite kits do you bring with you?
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't even matter. There's nothing. Nothing.
What mixtape is you're gonna listen to? That's what you got.
Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. Go down.
And so I know the feeling of being in a landscape landscape where I know nothing, right? In the case of where I worked in Western Uganda, Eastern Congo, it was just like, figure it out, Lambert.
Not everyone can just say, figure it out, Randall, and then just handle it. What are you listening for? When you say, figure it out, Lambert, what are you trying to figure out?
Relatively speaking, in terms of just presence of apex predators, in the habitat that I was in, there are a leopard around, et cetera, but they just don't want anything to do with you. It's more about parasites and snakes.
It's the tiny guys that can get in your bag.
And like with snakes, there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do. Like if you're going to run, if there's a boom slang that wants you, that's kind of it. With parasites, I've had a bunch, and that's not pleasant.
But you can't live in the fear of it. You have to just keep going.
Yeah, just keep doing it. And then you learn, okay, don't do whatever. Learn how to wash your clothes so that like mango flies and bot flies don't lay their eggs in it, and then you end up with this nasty thing in your...
Did you have mentors that you would find, guides or humans who've been living in those spaces who you would connect with?
Totally.
So that helps. So even when you were alone, then you could build these kind of communities eventually.
Yeah. But it was quite different than, say, open habitat in Africa, say in Eastern Africa, where really you should not be alone. You just because they're a lion and they're, so I was not in that kind of landscape. So I learned that kind of all the hard way just by doing it. Now, I was older and wiser when it came to working in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and I also knew that I knew nothing about how to be in landscapes with grizzly bear. And grizzly, I mean, they're a whole other ball.
That's a whole other thing. I spent 2 weeks in Alaska backcountry and saw some grizzly and was like, oh, yeah, everything they teach you on that film back in the... when you're in the lodge. Yeah. It's got nothing against these guys.
I know.
Do you like learning the hard way?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I love that. And but what I did for the grizzly thing, I knew that I knew nothing, and I also knew that the best way to figure out if whether an animal is about to attack you or not is to know their behavior. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I did not know the subtle behavior of grizzlies, so I watched hundreds of hours of video on YouTube of grizzly behavior in advance, like watching, okay, those ears, that animal's pissed off. Okay, oh, that's just a bluff. Oh, that's a sow with her cubs. Under no circumstances is that ever going to end well, So I did that. I practiced with bear spray and then, and know enough like to have a sense of where they'd be at what time of year. It doesn't, in some ways, none of that matters in that grizzly can be anywhere at any time, regardless of whether there's a carcass there or what have you. And so the very first few times I went out alone in the middle of nowhere in grizzly country, and there is the grizzly are doing well in the Yellowstone ecosystem, I was like, okay, this could be it. But the more I'm out there and day after day alone, just walking transects, looking for animals, finding scat, the more I know that the likelihood of running into one is extremely low, right? I have run into them. Every time I've run into them, it's been completely benign. Okay. And they don't want anything to do with me. Now, it might not
always go that way.
It might not always go that way.
Okay. And I'm not supposed to be sad if that happens.
No.
Okay.
Right. It'd be like, what?
All right,
damn, Lambert went out like Lambert. She wanted to.
There we go. There's a difference, it sounds like, what you're saying from being alone and being lonely. Are you not lonely out there?
Oh, no, not at all. I am not. I am lonelier in my little condo in Lyons than I ever am when I'm in the great wild world. No, I'm not at all lonely. I mean, the closest thing, I guess, that would come to loneliness, and this would, any human would resonate with, and that is that, there's such extraordinary beauty in the natural world. And what I have fully come to know is that, yes, that beauty, just suffuses through me and brings me to life. But at the end of the day, what you really want to do is have someone there that you can talk to it, talk
and share that
and
moment.
Share and have that like glance at that person and know that they are as in love with the world as you are, and that that's not quite loneliness. That's more just a little bit of maybe a pang, like, oh gosh, wouldn't it be cool to have, there are.
Because then when you're in Lions, you can turn to that person and say, remember that sunset?
Yeah, exactly.
Remember that moment when the light hit?
Yeah. Totally.
I love that as soon as we walked in, we started talking about the last time we saw each other.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about love and potential. And then we started talking about rock and roll and how you used to be not just a groupie, but like a rock goddess in the 80s. Like, who knew this about you, Joe Lambert? What the heck already?
Well, what I always say to folks, actually, it hardly ever comes up, but I'm ruined forever because literally my very, very, very first concert ever was the Rolling Stones.
So it's over.
And that was for the Some Girls tour, right? So Miss You was the big hit.
Where'd you see it? Where were you?
So that was Soldier Field.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Late 70s. So that, where do you go from the Rolling Stones? So yeah, rock and roll and music has been an extraordinarily important part of my life. There's a song by the Velvet Underground called Rock and Roll, and the refrain in that song is "My life was saved by rock and roll," and so that's how I think of it. And there's a whole story of I was born and raised in England, and then moved to Chicago in the 70s. But I had a little, what we call back then, a little wireless, a little transistor radio, and I figured out my favorite DJ, Larry Lujak, WLS Chicago, and that's like. The rest is history.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so your transition from maybe just wanting to follow rock and roll to now following wolves.
Right. Yeah.
How did you make that leap? Or is music still threading through your journeys? Because you are a rock star conservationist. You are a rock star planet saver. You are a rock star. How do we think with the actual intelligences of other beings on this planet besides humans?
Right.
And music saved your life. How are you saving the lives of so many species and connect? Does music still thread?
Music threads through every part of my life. There's really never a time when I don't have it on in my car or in my home.
But out in nature?
And actually, when I'm in nature, the music is the sound of nature, right? Which might sound a little trite, but it's actually, truly informative of that whole acoustic landscape that I live in. And interestingly, some of my more recent research, and this is being done with and through a PhD student of mine, I'm doing bioacoustics of wolf vocalizations and communications. So that's truly remarkable. But yeah, it was.
Yeah, what was the time? Tell me the timeline.
Yeah, so so I didn't come from a family that was. I don't really quite know how to put all of this, but I had a very chaotic sort of upbringing and didn't even know what university was. So I didn't have that kind of path. I had, arguably what people would call kind of a troubled home and life and situation. And but what I was good at art, and I buried myself in art.
What medium?
Mostly pencil, but then eventually oils and
what were you drawing? What were you
animals.
holding it? Animals were you?
So I did animals, and then
from your imagination, or were you?
So from real life, and then there goes my little dog.
So we have to say that Jo has a tiny wolf in her lap as she sits here in our studio. Who is our friend?
So this is Little Dandelion. He is a Pomeranian. Pomeranians are actually shrunk down Samoyeds. So Samoyeds are an Arctic sled dog, right? And so they're those big, high-latitude, fluffy white.
So closer to wolves than we think.
Indeed. Yes,
at Dandelion.
Indeed. Yes, and so 150 years ago, his ancestors would have been large sled dogs. It was Queen Victoria that so-called finished the breed and made them really small, and now I have one.
More wolf than lion in Dandelion,
that's
to be
right.
sure.
Yeah.
So not an easy childhood. Drawing and art and music.
Drawing and art and music. I was introverted. I was extremely shy, having come from a different country and just my situation at home.
How old were you when you moved to the States?
So I was young. I was in primary school. I mean, so I wasn't,
I lived in London until I was 5.
I think we
and then
knew that.
And then I came. Yes, I know.
Yeah,
and I came.
Love that.
But I went to Columbus, Ohio, so Midwest-ish. But Chicago feels more urban.
Yeah,
to have landed in.
Yeah, it was urban, and I recall my grandparents being concerned about gangsters, and because that was the reputation,
like
right?
From like the 20s.
Yeah, but like in the 70s in England, gangsters in Chicago were very alive. So,
but you were drawing from animals from where?
Just things like pigeons and
so native
rabbits
to your
and squirrels and horses, and then it was a teacher of mine that set me aside one day and said, Joanna, you have skill. I'd like to give you some, extra tutoring. And so I did that, and then it was my world. I didn't know really about science. I didn't know about higher education. I just did art, and I listened to music. I was the kid in high school that when I went to parties, I always had a brown paper bag filled with records, and I'd always like-spin the albums.
You were like a DJ.
I was so into it. So into it. And then
so you got invited everywhere because you were bringing the sack.
And then just kept at it, graduated high school, didn't go to college, just because I'd done a lot of art and received some awards. I actually got employed to do art.
So that for our listeners at home, that is something that happens, that you can get employed doing art.
Yes, it can happen, and it did happen. But
you're so known for your science. This is wild to hear that.
It didn't even occur to me.
It didn't occur to you.
It didn't occur to me.
You weren't even asking questions about the scientific nature of how this record was pressed, or the wing structure of this pigeon and how light it must be in order to fly. Like, you weren't even...
No, actually, simultaneously, believe it or not, I was reading Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. And so I was doing exactly that.
Art and science.
Yeah.
You were anding in the day. I mean, because Da Vinci is a pre-ander.
Yeah, absolutely, bringing those worlds together. So I would do experimental things like see if I could hatch eggs from the refrigerator, which, by the way, of course, doesn't work. But I was convinced I could make it work. I did actually build myself some wings.
You did?
I did. That didn't work so well.
Where'd you jump off of?
I was jumping off of high places. Like flapping my arms.
How old were you when you built the wings?
I know, ridiculous. But
this is the movie I want to see.
I know, and I do have photographs of this.
You do?
I do. It is. I was how old would I have been? 8, 9?
And you climbed up on the roof?
I didn't, for the wings, I didn't get that high. Yeah. I was, maybe, swing sets?
Yes.
Yeah, getting up on
the old metal rusty, super safe.
Yeah, super safe, awesome.
And then you climb on them, and then you jump off with your wings.
Yeah, that went well.
So you had a gap, and you went into a career in art.
Yeah, and then I did actually make a living. What I was doing was designing Christmas china for J.C. Penney's.
I've been stumped before in this room, Joe, but this is not what I expected you to say.
Crazy stuff. But then I was going pretty much 5 or 6 nights of the week going to see shows. I wasn't on really any other path than just being in the moment and just being a rock and roller, right? And there was enough of and within me that had a feel for what else, man? What else can? And so I started taking classes at a community college, and I took a zoology course, and I was like, you can get a job studying animals? And oh my God.
Everything.
That was it. And I started to go, and it was just a little, community college in Chicago, outside, sort of on the western side. And I started just talking to that instructor that was teaching it. And I spent a couple years taking community college classes, and then transferred to Northern Illinois University.
Wow.
So.
And then your path.
And then somehow it never occurred to me that I could actually be good at that sort of thing, but evidently I was. I did quite well.
And do you think it's because of your passion, or is it part of how your brain works?
Both, I think.
And you can handle some rugged living.
That's kind of stuff, like, it doesn't, I don't know, maybe because of a lot of really hard stuff when I was young. I'm like, well, yes, stuff, shit's hard, but so what? Just do it anyway, So that's what I did, and because I did all the work. I did a bachelor's, moved on into my master's, and then right into a PhD, and then a couple postdoctoral fellowships. And so, as it turns out, my training ultimately, overarchingly, was in biology and ecology, especially evolutionary biology and ecology, but also anthropology. I did a lot of anthropology, and my first first couple of decades were devoted to studying the behavior and evolution and ecology of non-human primates. So somewhere around 1990, I had the idea that I was going to go to equatorial Africa, and that was the beginning of my PhD research. And so I was that person that packed a tent and a backpack and went to closed canopy rainforest in equatorial Africa.
By yourself?
By myself.
This is the thing.
And then also,
and you're not like this huge human person.
But back to the music thing. Can you imagine? So I knew I was going to be there for several years.
So grunge was. Did you miss grunge?
No, I did. Actually,
my God,
I did.
You missed. I'm so sorry.
And so the first thing I did, actually, when I got back, was go into record store, and I was like, "What the hell did I miss?" But before I went, it took weeks, because of course back then all we had was these flippin' stupid little tape cassettes, and I didn't have that much room. I only had 28 room for 28 tape cassettes, like 90 minutes.
When people say, what is the,
like,
your desert island?
What did you bring?
So you have the Stones.
Yeah, I had the Rolling Stone. I mean, it ran the gamut, You
have your transistor.
And actually, by then, I had like one of those little mini boombox things.
You brought that to Africa.
I had that. And then my tape cassette thing that took forever to mix all the tapes. But anyway, so I went off.
And you made mixtapes. You didn't even just do one band. We talk a lot about mixtapes on this show.
Yeah.
I wanted.
It's a thing,
I know.
right?
Oh God, I have said R.I.P. the mixtape on this show. I think like 2 or 3 times. So we're gonna say it one more. We're gonna take a moment for the mixtape.
Yeah. Totally. And I remember, like, when you love someone, you'd be like, here's the tape, man.
I know. And it has your soul on the magnetic strip.
And I remember writing so carefully on, like, the thing. But, so I, for my PhD research, I studied chimpanzees, unhabituated chimpanzees, and primate behavioral ecology is what I did. But really, and there's a very long and deep and quite difficult story behind my realization that after about 25 years of working under extraordinary circumstances of observing, remembering the day that the Rwandan genocide started, being there, HIV, taking so many of my friends there, Ebola, so much difficult stuff. And every time I'd go back to my field site, it was just getting more and more impacted. It was very, very challenging. So at some point, starting really at about 2010 and thereafter, I started thinking about working, asking similar kind of research questions and working on similar conservation issues, but in a different sort of landscape. And so I began the work of setting up a big research project in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And rather than studying socially cohesive, highly intelligent primate species, I now kind of also include work on socially cohesive, highly intelligent canid species. So that includes coyotes and gray wolves and, So these
are you study the enemies in fairy tales.
In definitely in the case of gray wolves,
right?
Definitely in the case of gray wolves, and as it, it ended up being the case that because of my work in Yellowstone and because of my extensive work in conservation in Africa, that I became very much in the thick as one of the lead science advisors on the initiative to get gray wolves back into Colorado, and so that has been an epic undertaking, and
because you're the voice of that project,
as it turns out. I ended up
the body and the voice of that project.
I did that, like the ad campaign,
the ad campaign, the license plates.
Yeah, the license plate, yeah.
And you have had to field the resistance.
Indeed, yeah.
That comes from multiple sides, whether it's coming from ranchers, whether it's coming from just humans who are afraid, whether it's coming from maybe even other environmental groups. Yeah. What have you taken from your experiences in conflict, because you've lived in a lot of conflict in your life, to help navigate
that is like probably one of the most awesome questions I've ever been asked, and I thank you for that, because what I have found is, I think one of the most important public lectures that I give, and I give a lot of them, is on a discussion of fear and fear of the unknown. And what I've been struck by actually is a general lack of sort of empathy on the part of some folks, not all, but some folks, about like how folks might be feeling about suddenly having gray wolves back, and that actually
it's feeling. It's not. It's not science. It's not data.
And that feeling. That a lot of it might feel really frightening. Mm-hmm. Fear of the unknown. Fear of, is my livelihood going to be impacted? Will my children or my pets be hurt? And for me, I've dealt with a lot of fear. In the field and around the world, literally, but especially I've dealt with some really serious shit in equatorial Africa.
But your path, you just kept making it and remaking it.
Yeah.
And then and you've always been a little wild.
Oh, I guess.
So wild isn't weird to you. So
no.
I want to ask about this. There's a whole trend of women rewilding.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there is.
There's this. So is that bullshit to you, because you've actually wilded and rewilded, or someone who has survived different relationships? And this thing about empowerment, do you see the metaphor? Is it working?
I think it works. I love it.
You do.
I love that movie. I love that movie. I love that book.
You love that. Yeah.
I love Cheryl Strayed.
I know.
Love that woman.
You do. Yeah.
I think, you know why? Because we're not being taught necessarily to be wild. We're maybe now, and I love that about how girls are being raised now, right? But, in the 60s, in the 70s, it wasn't about being wild. It was about being a good girl.
So you had to rebel to be wild. It wasn't permitted.
And no one ever paid attention to what I was doing, so it was like a non-issue.
But the education of women
the education
was to behave.
And as you know, and I'm not saying anything that is novel, and even remotely, but that has been the messaging, right? Mm-hmm. Know your place. It's, there was this amazing movie that came out. It was called Mountains of the Moon, and it was based on the true story of Richard Burton and John Speke, the adventurers who were looking for the source of the Nile. And this was in the mid-19th century. And it's this beautifully done film. And the Mountains of the Moon are the Ruwenzori Mountains where my field site is. So I love this film. And I love Richard Burton. He was an amazing adventurer. He wrote Arabian Nights. John Speke was, this amazing scholar. It was John Speke who thought that the source of the Nile was out of Lake Victoria. Burton had other ideas. But anyway, in this film, Richard Burton in England meets a woman and they fall in love, but then Burton goes off to have his adventures. And this woman said to a friend of hers, "If I were a man, I would be Richard Burton, but I'm not. I'm a woman, so I have to stay in London." And to me, that I think about that over and over again.
And you're like, I am Richard Burton, and then some.
And then, because I would love
I have to stay.
Yeah, I would love it if we were able to be in circumstances where everyone, man and woman, girl and boy, and, all non-binary, everyone had that sense of, I am a wild thing. There are millions of years of evolutionary history that arrived at what I am today, and the vast majority of that was a wild thing living in a wild place. Only now are we, somehow sequestered away from that world. So we are needing to be taught it.
Yes. And would that help us also heal the planet?
I think so, right? Yeah. If we could just get and if I could wish for anything, it would be that. Get your kids outside, man. Have them eat dirt, for crying out loud. Let them know what a earthworm smells like, or what it means to have a stink bug, like blast its stink in your face, or all of it.
All of it.
All of it, because that is that's how you learn how to be, get some of that wildness back. I would, and again, back to your question of what can you do, and I would argue, Erica, that your work as an artist, as a visual and performance artist, is one of the most important modalities out there for conveying.
Thank you, Jo.
All of what we are feeling, both internally and what we need to do externally. If I go up in front of an audience and just say, well, did you know that 0.001% of X, Y, and Z,
nobody gives a shit.
As long as the variables are controlled for, will mean that we will have, A, B, and C? No. People's eyes glaze over. You've lost them.
Yeah, you got to tell the stories.
You got to tell the story, and that is what you do. That's what you're doing with this podcast. That's what you do in your work. And you're in a world of pedagogy and teaching, and that. What more noble things are there than that? So
I'm going to take all that love. I'm going to take it, Jo. Yeah. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to also. I don't want to, but. We have to play the quick and dirty because we're at time.
No way.
I know.
Are you kidding?
I know. We're at time. I know. I'm looking at producer Tim. He's like, I know. And I don't want to.
Crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
No, that was like 10 minutes.
It was 10 minutes.
Okay.
We're going to have to hang out more, but it's almost impossible to get our schedules to
And now
I
want like a beer. I want to just stay then have some nachos.
Let's just have a beer and some nachos. And then you can hit the rhythm. But first you got to play the quick and dirty. Okay,
yes.
The rules of the game. You have to be quick. You don't have to be dirty, but maybe you might want to get dirty, like dirt dirty. Like,
can I swear?
You can always swear.
I curse? Yeah, I curse like a sailor.
Yeah, we don't have this. We have to put explicit on. My kid's like, Mom, I can't listen to your podcast because it says explicit.
Okay, good.
Okay, and you have to use the word and. But you could say this, like this and that, or like wolves and beavers, or you could also say if you were talking about land and it has and in it. So but you're going to answer the questions.
Oh boy.
It's going to be great.
Okay.
It's going to go great.
All right.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Okay. You're out in the field. Mm-hmm. What are your perfect trail mix snack combos that can get you so that you're tracking someone and something you can you're fueled up? What is your backpack snack?
Snickers bar.
Are you serious? That's the perfect combo.
Oh my God.
It's all right there.
Oh, it's right there.
You're not worried about it melting?
Well, that's a thing. But I don't care.
You don't care. You're going to lick it off the paper.
I'm just going to lick the bloody thing.
Oh my God. You're just going to lick it. Just get in there. Okay, perfect. Okay, but now we got to play the game. Snickers and
Cheetos.
Oh my God, this is not what I expected. I love you so freaking much. And because of with the packet, you can lick.
Totally.
It's going to last for hours.
I mean, the orange on the fingers is annoying, but who cares? I've got dirty field pants on.
Nobody sees you. Yeah, just right on the pants. Okay, so we were talking already about the 2 simple things that we could do to help the planet, but specifically for wolves, what are 2 simple things that especially maybe folks around here can do?
Confront the fear and recognize that your dog is the same genus and species. Your dog at home is a wolf.
Thank you. Those are 2 really good things. Okay. I go camping. I mean, very rarely now, but I used to really be super into camping. And now it hurts my back and hips and I got to get my situation figured out. But when I'm out and I hear the ow or the or the I get scared.
Yeah.
What are the sounds that scare you?
These days, there isn't much.
Okay.
I
like men, the sound of men in the woods would be
say,
terrifying.
Yeah, the sound of an approach, truly, the sound of an approaching man talking maybe to another man, me knowing that I'm alone in a tent. Mm-hmm. That has actually never happened. I've never... I mean, I could go on and on and on about all the crazy shit I've heard outside my tent in the different parts of the planet. I think the most frightening one was when a grizzly took down an elk about 50 feet from my tent.
Oh, my God.
And so I heard this, what I now know with graphic acuity, what it sounds like when a grizzly bear is eating an elk alive.
Like what it sounds like to lose to a grizzly bear.
Yes, and the sounds of then it eating all night. So that was bad. That was pretty bad. I was scared as hell.
Oh, my God.
I was also scared.
You were also like, at least they're hungry, though. Or at least they're full.
He's distracted.
Now he's distracted, so you're safe.
Totally. He's like, he's got a dinner. Another time I was very frightened was I was alone in a tent in Eastern Africa, and there were 6 male lions circling my tent, like full on. And I was sitting in the tent. So one thing I've learned is I had a couple of colleagues, believe it or not, that had saved themselves or knew someone that had saved themselves with a Bic lighter because they set their bag on fire when a lion came in their tent.
Notes to self.
Yep. And then, so I was sitting in my tent with my Bic lighter and my Swiss Army knife. And I was like, I got this. I knew I didn't, but I also knew that they were just goofy young lions because I'd seen them.
You'd seen them.
I'd seen them, and they were like
Dummies.
Subadults. They were just curious.
Dummies.
And usually, 99% of the time, when you hear anything outside, first of all, it's usually just a small rodent, and it sounds like it's like hippo size, but it's just like a tiny.
The dark makes things bigger.
Yeah. So usually it's like absolutely nothing, and if it is something slightly larger, it's because they're curious and they've smelled something. So I'm not usually that freaked out.
Okay. What are your gifts from being near wolves?
Oh, watching. I mean, there are so many gifts, right? And that is the irony of wolves, right? People they're either reviled or revered. They're either loved or loathed, right? And like with the reverence and the love that is, in narratives and stories and of significance to First Nations and Indigenous populations, it's, they're just extraordinary care for their puppies. They are cooperative breeders. Every individual in the pack takes care of the puppies. The puppies are annoying, like we know puppies are. They bite ears. The adults put up with it. They feed them, and it's just, you watch that and like you feel your own oxytocin going up. It's like you feel like, it's so that is a gift. The gift of I've watched wolves deal with things like human, Homo sapien, we're just a bunch of whiners, right? Like when you watch the kinds of things that a wolf needs to do to get a meal or to enter into an area where there are people that want to kill them, and then they get injured by a bison that kicks them, and then they just get up and do it again without complaint. They just do it.
They just do it. That sounds like you.
I don't know about that, but
the resilience piece.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right, you got to give a love note to students. You're going to send a graduation class off. You're going to send a student out into the field, and you're going to give them a blessing. You're going to give them a charge, and it's going to start with, and may your Bic lighter always have enough fluid. Like what would your love note be, starting with and, as if it's the last sentence and it's the send off?
Don't avoid that love anywhere that you bump into it. A professor like me actually does feel love for you. Allow that to come in. So have the love part of it on the one hand, and then on the other part of it, just do all the shit that scares you. And even if you are feeling afraid of something, do it anyway, because the growth that is derived is, it's worth its weight in gold.
And that was Joanna Lambert, Professor of Conservation Biology at the University of Colorado Boulder. For more about Jo's research and the Rocky Mountain Wolf Project, please see our show notes. The Ampersand is a production of the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Colorado Boulder. It is written and produced by me, Erica Randall, and Tim Grassley. If there are people you'd like us to interview on the Ampersand, do please email us at asinfo@colorado.edu. Our theme music was composed and performed by Nelson Walker, and the episodes are recorded at Interplay Recording in Boulder, Colorado. I'm Erica Randall, and this is the Ampersand. and this is Jo Lambert on the ampersand. That was Jo Lambert on the ampersand. For more about Jo and her research, see our show notes.